talking to another analyst at Morgan Stanley. End of the day, the way that you get an offer is like you check all the boxes, right?
There we go.
Appreciate everyone tuning in as well. And feel free to reach out any more questions. So my first piece of advice is do not just have the same list of questions that you think everyone else does and just read from them. Though you can have the base layer of like, tell me about the culture, why investment banking. Really what you want it to be is more of a evolving conversation with follow-ups. If you just have like the same list, you're just going to fall into the trap of sounding like everyone else. One thing is finding a way to be memorable. And I think one way to do that is the small talk in the beginning, asking them how their day is going, or like after they give a background, look for any connections that you can talk about. Are you from the same hometown? What high school did you go to? What do you think of the Carolina Panthers this year? Any areas of interest? I always try to look for just one slight inch of like a commonality and just press on that for like the first 5 minutes. Maybe a little LinkedIn stalking to see, oh, I saw they worked at this company or were in this club. Any area of commonality, set the stage for a good conversation, be a little bit more memorable rather than just going straight into like just boring questions. The second part being articulate. So this is like the one area where it's a little bit harder to describe, but you don't want to just ramble on and not have a clear sense of what you're asking and kind of waste your 30 minutes. You want to be concise and articulate. They can tell, if they think like you're smart and like can do the job, because communication is a huge part of the job. They want to see that you're an effective communicator. You also have, enthusiasm, and you generally know what you're talking about, came in with a little bit of a plan, but can evolve on the spot with the conversation. And then the last piece, being personable. At the end of the day, the way that you get an offer, you check all the boxes on the technical front and resume, but they really want to just know if this is someone who I can work alongside for 90 plus hours a week. And really what it comes down to is being personable, and that's being enthusiastic, that's being able to hold a conversation, and just giving off good energy. You want them to actually enjoy the conversation because again, they're taking 30 minutes out of their day, which on the back end probably could result in 30 minutes less of sleep. So like make them enjoy it and get to know you. And asking follow-up questions, I think, is like the main part of that. Again, if you just come in with a list of questions and you're not asking follow-ups, it's clear that you're not really interested. You just have like a list that you are asking about. If you're engaged in the conversation, I think that really like goes really far. And for me, when I'm judging someone, I if they are giving off good energy and creating conversation, I think I always like come away thinking better of them. So those are like the three overall things again that I wanted to communicate is like being memorable, which is not a science, but the small talk and like finding some inches where you can, slide in a memorable question or comment. Being articulate, again, that's a good judge of competency. And then just being personable, which is at the end of the day a really important variable when deciding who moves through the recruiting process. Second part that I had planned out are just general good questions or like good angles that I think are hopefully tangibly helpful for y'all. I'll go through some and hopefully this is helpful. Well, first of all, on this, I'm not saying like don't ask the basic questions. Like you should ask like why they chose investment banking and asking about the group culture, but use those as like intros into follow-up questions. And so just want to be clear that you can have those questions, but like that you should have other things that are different from what everyone else are talking about. Like I said, follow-up questions are helpful. So like I don't know, for example, if they are talking about culture and they mention that they're really good friends with their analyst class, you can follow up and say like, oh, you like the analyst class a lot, but what about your superiors? Or like, what about your analyst class? Do you think, do they have similar backgrounds? So that's like just, I guess, one example of listening to what they say and picking out a specific piece of what they say and then asking like another question. Again, I think is like super helpful. I'll just run through the other list of questions I wrote down. I think like what's your favorite part of the job is a good one. It kind of puts them in a good mood where they're like, okay, I've been sleep deprived and working really hard on all this, but like having them think about the good parts, I think just puts them in a better mood. I think another effective strategy is referencing what another employee said on a previous call. So this is something I did a lot where before I talked to one analyst at Morgan Stanley, I'm talking to another analyst at Morgan Stanley. I might ask a question like, Jordan mentioned that he feels like he has a lot of input during deal processes. Do you feel the same way? I think that's just one way to show that you've listened to other conversations, but also just a good way to flex that you're not the first person I've talked to. I like do care about learning more. And so I think that's like an effective strategy. Once you get down the line, you can continually use like themes like, oh, Jordan and Ryan said this. Do you agree? And so again, I think it just can compound and snowball where you have like recurring themes, and that also just forms a connection where like I didn't realize that you talked to this other person. You really must like care. So I think that's good. Another one that I used a lot when I was recruiting in y'all's shoes is I would end every call with asking, how do you like living in New York? I was someone who had never been to New York before. And so it came from a genuine place where I'm like, I've never lived in the Northeast. I am curious about, what you like living in New York for. I think that's helpful because, it takes away from the like job focus of a talk and gets them to talk about like I don't know their favorite restaurants or going out. And again, I think that puts them in a slightly better headspace at the very end, and it's not really a common question that gets asked. And that also opens up to like, oh, I love going to restaurants, and then you can be like, oh, what's your favorite place? And I don't know, maybe you've been there. And again, asking about like stuff outside of the job, I think it opens up a lot of doors, and not that many people do it. And I think that again helps facilitate conversation a little bit more. Another one, like any advice for me during my sophomore or junior year of college, again, not related to the job, but gives them a little bit of nostalgia going back to school, and you can talk about classes or clubs and just another entry point into like further conversation. So those are like some of the main ones. There's a million others, but I thought those were hopefully tangibly helpful for everyone here. And then the last thing, the follow-up email, I think is always like debated and like the best way to approach it. I'll just give you my formula. So I keep it 3 to 4 sentences, 24 hours later. First sentence, thank you for taking the time to talk yesterday. Second sentence, enjoyed hearing about, and then like the most specific slash funny moment during the conversation. Again, going back to the memorable piece, like don't say I enjoyed hearing about the culture at Morgan Stanley. Like say, I enjoyed, hearing about the West Village restaurant scene or something like that. And like again, that goes back to being memorable, and it shows that like you're a well-rounded human rather than just focused on, just the boring questions. Um, third sentence, let me know if there's anyone else you think I should talk to. So I usually advise people not to like put the pressure on live and ask that, because sometimes, and I've been on the receiving end, sort of fumble through it and not really sure. I think it's a good way, like when you follow up, say, let me know. You're not like asking for it, you're just like, let me know. And then, if they thought you did well, they'll put you in touch with someone. So it's like a less harsh way of like asking to be connected, and it also helps them remember like, oh, I should put them in touch with someone else on the team. And then if it's a Thursday or Friday, hope you have a good weekend, exclamation point. Just again, show them a little like being nice and everything. So yeah, that's again my formula. It works different for everyone, but I think keeping it somewhat short, if you have a little bit of structure to it, then that also helps. So yeah, that's overall my main takeaways. Hopefully that was generally helpful. Try to give some tangible advice, but again, it's different for everyone, and if anyone has any specific questions, happy to answer them now. Oh, we got one question.
Thanks, Ryan. All right, thank you.